Hello everyone, it's Rachel. Welcome to my channel and to today's video, which is a very special one because we have a new member of the family with us now. Esme Ann. She was born bright and early on February 19th. And today I'm excited to be able to sit down and share my birth story with you guys. I had a really great labor delivery experience. It was very different from my first labor and delivery, but just as good and maybe even a little bit better of an experience than last time. By the time you're seeing this video, she is about a week and a half old, and we are just enjoying every moment with her and just adjusting to being a family of four. Yeah, I'm really excited to get to share with you kind of the whole birth story, how it all went. So let's go ahead and get started. So the Friday night, the 18th, before she was born, was just a typical Friday night for us. I mean, usually before the baby's born, the day starts off pretty typical. We put Tobias down for bed and had our little date night dinner and movie. And I started having some really minor contractions around 9:30. So we were still up finishing the movie, I think. Very irregular. But by the time we went to bed, there was more pressure, more tightening. So I decided I was going to stay up a little bit and see if I could get things going, see if this was actually labor. I had been having a lot of Braxton Hicks. If you've watched my pregnancy updates, I've been having them for quite a while. Just a very mild, irregular, typical thing. But since it was about a week until our due date, I wanted to see if we could actually get things going. So Elias went to bed, I stayed up and just turned down the lights, lit a candle, just because I had heard melatonin can help get labor to continue, whereas if there's lots of light and that kind of thing, it can slow things down. So I just made a really nice environment with a candle, dim lights, and I just walked around, tried to time the contractions to see if they would get closer together or more intense or longer. And I stayed awake for, I'm not exactly sure how long, maybe like an hour, hour and a half. And they were just getting absolutely nowhere. Because they had started off pretty long and consistent, but then they started getting further apart and shorter. So I eventually just decided to go back to bed because this was getting nowhere and I was losing sleep. And the dishwasher's going, so it's a little bit noisy here, but it's like 10:30. I've been having some contractions on and off for about an hour now. They started off pretty mild, but they're getting to be a bit intense. I've got a timer on my phone, so I'm trying to keep track of them. Right now they're pretty spread out, like about 10-ish minutes or so, but they are a bit intense, having to breathe through them. So I'm just gonna keep timing them. Going to go to bed and see if I don't think I'll be able to really sleep unless they go away, but just try to get some rest, and if they start coming more often, then yeah, seeing what I can do to just ease them a bit until it's time to go to the hospital if this doesn't lay off and we're actually in labor, so we'll see. Got into bed. I was still having the mild contractions, tried to get some sleep. But then at about 1:30, I woke up to some really intense contractions. It went from being just the pressure and the tightness to actual intense pain where I was having to really breathe through them just out of nowhere. And I was suddenly awake. I grabbed my phone, started timing them, and it did not take very long for them to get close together, about 5 minutes apart, and lasting anywhere from 45 seconds to a minute. My midwife had told me to call them when I had been having contractions for an hour that were 5 minutes apart and about a minute long. So I timed them and worked on my methods for handling the contractions during that time. I had got some combs, which I tried using, just squeezing the comb into my hand to see if that pain would kind of eliminate some of the pain of the contraction. It did help, but not as much as I was expecting it to. I tried just kind of going on hands and knees, squeezing the combs, and just really focusing on breathing through them. I think that probably helped the most. In my last labor, I did not really focus on any of these things. My water broke first, and so I started having contractions that were intense when I was already at the hospital, and they just gave me the gas, and I tried that. It made me super dizzy. I did not like it, but I didn't really try a lot of coping methods. I pretty much just stayed in the bed. I had a lot of back labor, and it was awful. But yeah, I hadn't really used any pain methods or anything for handling the pain. I just kind of got through them. So this was a different experience where I actually tried like breathing and using the combs and different positions to find something that really worked for me. So after about an hour of them being 5 minutes apart and about a minute long, I called the midwife and she told us it was time to head to the hospital. So we packed everything up in between contractions, and my mom came over and she stayed with Tobias overnight while we headed off to the hospital. And around this time when we were like up packing and everything, I found that my favorite way to handle the contractions was to like lean up against a wall or a counter and kind of push against it while breathing through the contraction. I found that really helped. And when Elias came and put pressure on my back, that was like, it made it so much easier to handle them. That quickly became like my favorite way to handle the pain. So through like packing, getting to the hospital, and then we were there while we were waiting to get into a bed. That was what I did to help get me through the contractions, and it really helped. So it's now like 2:45 in the morning, and I've been having really intense contractions for about an hour. They kind of went away around 12, so I went to bed, but at 1:30 they kicked in, and they've been really intense. So we're headed to the hospital now. And yeah, hopefully it won't be too long before we have the baby. Almost at the hospital. It's much harder having contractions in the car, but we're almost there. So, and hopefully it won't take too long to get into a room and everything. And yeah, hopefully only a couple hours left to go. We'll see. So we got to the hospital, and I was kind of put in like a waiting area where basically there's a bunch of beds, and they would come and check me, and then if I'm ready, they'll move me into a room. Last time I went straight into a room because my water had broken and I was group B strep positive, and so they wanted to get the antibiotics in me right away. This time I was also group B strep positive, but there's another lady there also laboring, and I think they were like short on staff or something, so they couldn't put us both into a room at the same time. So they needed to see which of us was further ahead, and that person would get the room. So the midwife came and checked me. I was hoping, like, I really just want to be at like a 4, even a 5 would be great, but I really want to be at a 4. And she came and checked me. The student midwife checked me first, and she's like, oh, you're at like a 6, you're doing really good. And I was like, oh, okay, that's higher than I expected. So then the senior midwife, she came in and checked me. She's like, oh, you're actually at like a 7 or even an 8. And I was just so happy just knowing that we had just got to the hospital and I was already like almost fully dilated. That was like the best news ever. So I actually ended up being ahead of the lady who's laboring next to me. So they moved me into the room to get me started on the antibiotics right away. I was not in the room that long laboring before it was time to push. It went really fast. Last time I had taken gas, and then towards the end they gave me fentanyl. My last labor was 8 hours, 2 of which were pushing, which was really rough. But this time around it just all went so fast. there was just no time for pain meds, which I felt like I was handling the contractions okay. They were really painful, really intense, but I knew I could handle it. So I ended up being able to make it through the labor without needing any pain medication or anything like that, which I was really, really happy about that. I was not sure I was going to be able to make it. I was pretty sure I was going to need to ask for fentanyl again this time, but yeah, it went so quickly, I didn't find I really needed it. So we got to where it was time to push, and I was feeling so nervous because last time it took me 2 hours to push, and I just felt exhausted by the end of it. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get this baby out. So they had to do an episiotomy. But this time I felt like the pushing just went so much better, because last time, no matter how hard I pushed, I felt like I was getting absolutely nowhere. Whereas this time around, every push, I could feel the baby moving down. I could feel that I was getting somewhere and that things were progressing as they should. So that was really encouraging. I only ended up pushing for 15 minutes this time, which was so much nicer than the 2 hours before. But with my son, because they did an episiotomy, and the whole 2 hours I was pushing, his head wasn't even out or anything. There was just like a little bit of his head showing through for pretty much the whole time. And then they did the episiotomy, and it was like 1 or 2 pushes and the whole head was out. And then another push and the whole body was out. So I had actually never felt that ring of fire that women talk about. This time I definitely felt it, and oh man, it was intense. It is no joke when they call it a ring of fire. It took a couple pushes for me to get the head all the way out, and then a couple pushes for the body. And during that time, just the burning was so bad. I was like, I'm not gonna be able to do this. It almost felt worse than the contractions. And yet it was like encouraging, knowing like I'm so close to being done. This baby's almost out. It's almost over. We finally got the baby out, and then I asked Elias to be the one to say what the gender was. And when he said that it was a little girl, I was so excited. I love being a boy mom, but since I have a boy, I really wanted this time to have a girl. I would have been so happy with a boy though, because it would have been so nice to give Tobias a little brother. But just the fact that it was a girl, I was totally thrilled. And I kind of felt like towards the end, I'd been leaning towards it being a girl, though I knew there was a high chance of it being a boy too. It's 50-50. But I was just so excited that now I had my son, now I had a daughter, and also I was so excited for Elias because he comes from a family of all boys. So I know having a daughter was just going to be something so special for him. So from when my intense contractions first started to when Esme was born, it was just 3.5 hours. It was a really fast labor, and it was really nice, just the fact that I didn't have to labor for that long. It was a really quick thing, but the fact that it was fast meant that it like got intense very quickly. So I didn't have a lot of time to transition from like the beginning of labor to active labor to like the transition. It was all like very fast. So we named her Esme Anne. Esme means loved in French, I believe. It's just a name that we really loved. We picked it out when we were pregnant with Tobias. Even though we knew he was a boy, we went and picked out some girl names anyway, and Esme was the one that we really loved. It's very like classy and feminine and not too like girly or anything like that, and it works well in both Spanish and English, which is something that is very important to us for the fact that Elias comes from a Spanish background, or from the Dominican Republic. So we wanted it to be a name that his family could easily pronounce. She was born weighing 6 pounds 15 ounces, so almost half a pound heavier than Tobias. And she came with a full head of hair. Tobias came with quite a bit of hair too, but she definitely came with more hair than even he had. So because she was the second baby, they said technically I could have gone home within 6 to 10 hours after she was born, because I've kind of been through the whole newborn thing, the recovery, everything like that. The only thing was, because the labor was so fast and I was again group B strep positive, they were only able to get 1 round of antibiotics into me, and they wanted to get at least 2. So they wanted me to stay the 24 hours just to make sure she didn't catch anything. My water did break pretty much right before I started pushing. So they weren't too concerned about her having too much contact, but they wanted just to be safe, so they had to stay the full 24 hours. I had also lost a little bit more blood than they would have liked. It wasn't like an extreme amount or anything like that, just a little bit more than, I guess, normal or than preferred amount. So they wanted me to stay as well, just to make sure that the bleeding was stopping, that it wasn't too much, and that everything was going the way it should with my recovery. That is my birth story. Overall, it was a really good labor, and I'd say I'd had a pretty good experience. Nothing traumatic or anything like that. I did tear again this time and have to get stitches. Well, actually last time I didn't really tear and got an episiotomy. I think I might have torn a little bit on top of the episiotomy, but this time, yeah, it was just a tear. They did stitches. But so far I'm recovering well. Esme is doing really well. We are so excited to be starting this journey of being a family of 4, and I'm really looking forward to sharing it with you guys through my vlogs, and also sharing my experiences and things I'm learning through my other topical videos. So be sure and stay tuned for those. That is all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you can stay tuned for all of my vlogs and future videos about being a mom of 2 under 2 and dealing with a newborn and a toddler and all that kind of stuff. Also be sure and check out my Instagram. I'll be trying to post regularly throughout the week. So if you want kind of like day-to-day content, then be sure to go and check me out over there. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.